Okay, we are going to get started. Welcome everyone that's here. I'm actually kind of excited. Most of the lineup of these Zooms, I'm really excited about. These are some of the best people I know, and I'm tapping into them to come and share their messages here with our TDA community. And tonight is no exception. I didn't even ask Mindy for a bio. I'm just going to make some stuff up. And then, Mindy, if I got it wrong, you just correct all of it. I'm really excited for people to get to know Mindy. She is absolutely one of my favorite people. And she works hard. She's very smart. She's bubbly. Everybody thinks they are Mindy's best friend. And by the end of this meeting, you're going to think so too. And you'll see why everyone is pretty sure it's them. She is just exceptional in so many ways. Mindy, her most recent gigs, I'll talk about her last three. She spent about almost a decade at Equality Utah, just running things left, right, and center. She's really one of the main reasons that Equality Utah is as successful as it is. The only thing that would take her away from that, she spent some time recently at Huntsman Mental Health. And since then, she had and her partner have started Constructive Alchemy. And so she's here in that position. But she's one of my dearest friends, and I can't wait to hear this message that she's going to share with us. And so, what we'll do for anybody who's new here, Mindy's message will likely go, I haven't heard it, so I'm guessing about 30 or 40 minutes. Any questions you have for her, go ahead and put things in the chat. If she's can watch that and there are questions there, maybe she'll answer. If they're relevant to the moment, I might jump in and ask her if she's missed them, or go ahead and put a question in the Q&A box at the bottom. And then between Mindy and I, we will get to those questions before the end of the meeting. We do like to keep this to right about an hour. Occasionally we end a little early, so we'll see what happens today, but we try not to go over that hour. So with that, I don't think there are any other announcements, so I'm just going to turn this over to Mindy. Mindy, I'm going to close my camera and my audio, but I'm here. So if I need to jump on, I might do that. If you have a question, just ask it straight into the camera and I'll be listening, and hopefully I can get the answer that you need. All right.
Great.
Welcome, welcome, Mindy Young.
Thank you for that kind introduction. This is a bummer that I can't see everyone's faces because I have this PowerPoint. It makes me want to ditch the PowerPoint so I can see everyone's faces. But I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit today. Sarah actually asked on the day that I had spoken at the U.S. Global Diplomacy annual conference. And so I said, sure, I can just kind of share what I shared at that conference, because I think in the times that we're living in and how divided we feel, I think that trying to keep an open heart is a really powerful thing that we can do for our own sanity and our own happiness, and that to keep relationships with our family and with people we know, and not write off people because of who they voted for or what they think about this or that. It's so easy to just want to dismiss people because of their views on different things. And I think in order to live a really truly heart-centric life, we even when it's very difficult, we'll be happier ultimately if we try to keep an open heart. Like Sarah mentioned, I was the managing director of Equality Utah. I've known their executive director, Corey Williams, since 1998. He he auditioned for my first professional directing and choreographing gig. And I was still very, very Mormon and very, very closeted, and he was too. So it's so fun that we met so all that time ago and stayed friends all those years. But what I appreciate about my work at Equality Utah is how much I learned about effective advocacy, because I think effective advocacy goes right to effective relationship building, because that's all advocacy really is. And I think about um, the things I learned and sort of the things I was forced to learn. Because my story quickly is I was a very, very conservative, active Mormon. I have 5 sons. I I'm a theater girl. My degrees are in theater directing and education, and my I had a crisis of faith during Prop 8, and I I when I say crisis, I'm not being lightweight. It was a crisis. I did not know what to do with all the feelings that I was having. Oh, yeah, it makes me cry still. It was so dramatic and so life changing, um, that it really steered my life in a whole different direction. And when I got divorced and moved to Salt Lake City, um, the Troy immediately hired me when he heard I was back in Salt Lake, to come and do their events. And I felt so grateful because I felt like the queer community just caught me and held me at the time of crisis in my life when I needed a community so badly. And then once I started working for Equality Utah, Troy taught me, and the thing he said that I always remember, Mindy, every person I look at, I consider them, every person I sit across from and try to speak to, I consider them my future ally and my future friend. And isn't that a powerful way to move through the world when every person you see, you consider them your future friend? And Troy had me read these 3 books. And if you don't get anything out of today, I highly, highly recommend these 3 books. And truly, this book, Love Your Enemies, when he first gave it to me, I rolled my eyes so hard and was almost a little offended, like, what in the hell are you making me read? And yet I still think it's one of the best books I've ever read. Um, don't label me. Oh, Arthur Brooks is a Harvard professor, and he actually has a fellowship at the U. So you'll see him in Utah quite a bit. And if you get the chance to hear him speak, it's really worth it. And then Irshad Manji actually ended up being one of our coaches at Equality Utah, teaching us quite a bit. And then and her book, Don't Label Me, is really silly and fun, but it's a lot of the same principles but she's a queer, she's a lesbian Muslim, and she's really fascinating, and her story is very fascinating. And then the same with Monica Guzman. They're all saying that same thing, like, don't discount people, bring people in. It's not a movement if no one moves. How do we talk to each other? How do we work across the aisle? And in that, I felt I just learned so much. Um, and I always want to create a world where the people I talk to aren't afraid of saying what's on their mind, saying what's on their heart. And I hope that today that you'll give me the grace too, that if I say the wrong thing or say something stupid, that I would love to talk with you about it instead of us canceling each other or making each other feel in trouble. I think a lot of us here who have found TDA and love this organization and love Sarah and Steve, we've been through some stuff in our lives. And so to be able to really hold on to each other and pull each other up, um, even if we're not always perfect. And so I'm asking for grace, and I'm extending it to you as well. And I wish that we could be in conversation with each other more easily. I would love to see in the chat if I can figure out how to work it. Um, I would love you to type in 3 words that people would label you as. Just things that people would say about you. Honey, how do I find oh, there we are. Um, for instance, people would say to me that I'm a teacher, that I'm bossy, or that I'm a mom, that I'm loud. These are all funny little labels that people say. I would love to see some folks type in the, oh, I see, sexy, very sexy, super sexy. Yes, yes. I would love to see other people's labels that you've been called or that you've even identified with. Oh, our connection seems weak. Oh, organizer, intense, messy. That's a conundrum right there. An organizer who is messy. I like that about you. But if you think about those words or those labels that you might get hit with, um, how how quickly, Republican, Democrat, uh, um, mom, grandma, uh, sexy, super sexy, whatever those are, it can almost limit you to a much smaller person than the vast expanse of person that you really are. And when when we think about types and diversity, um, it's so easy to start to label people and expect um, us all to be the same. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And Irshad, she really coached us about viewpoint diversity. And that's when diversity is really, what actual diversity is viewpoint diversity. Everyone here at TDA doesn't think the same way, but we're all here. So aren't we all that kind? And of course, we know that's not true, but it's so easy to reduce people to their labels. And my hope is that living a heart-centric life, that we're letting people be juicy and messy and expansive and not let people, you voted for who? Then I know about you. I know who you are, and you're this to me, or you're nothing to me. And to really challenge ourselves to stay open. Um, this is an Arthur Brooks quote. There is evidence that as we become less exposed to opposing viewpoints, we become less logically competent as people. And something he talks about in his book, he talks about motive attribution asymmetry. When the people who are on our side or who voted the way we did are full of love and doing it from love, and the people who didn't are hateful and they're bigots and they're assholes, whatever we want to label them at. But then that's the same on their side. Oh, those people, they are destroying the country, they are destroying the fabric of society. And we point at people and label them and reduce them to their labels. But you think about that pointing, that there's three fingers pointing back at us when we point at someone. And those three fingers pointing back at us, can we ask ourselves the same thing, that we're passing judgment? Is that judgment of ourselves? Are we holding that judgment for ourselves for real? Are we blaming ourselves? Are we saying that because of insecurities we have? Are we saying that because of unhealed stuff we haven't dealt with, because of our own anger? And just things to consider when we're blaming and shaming other people, that a lot of times it's just still our little unhealed selves that need a look, and need us to drop down into our heart, take a look at that. Um, I can't wait for you to see this video. And if you have seen it, it's worth another watch.
Mindy, we can't hear the video. Is there supposed to be sound?
Oh no! That kind of blows the whole if you can't hear it. Mm.
Let's.
And you know what we can do, Sarah? I can share this link with you.
Okay.
It's just a simple, beautiful video that we can
Okay.
share out. It's so worth a watch. I've seen it hundreds of times and I still love
Awesome.
it. But
Drop
really
the link
getting
into
to
the chat and then everybody can grab it
All
when
right.
you're ready. Okay, thank you.
Oh, so we don't have to worry about the sound. Still can't hear it?
Nope, still no sound.
Okay.
You want to narrate it for us?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Um, sorry about that. You'd really, really love it if you could hear it. Um, basically, that video shows how we're more alike than we're more different than we are different. And when we get so wedged into our political ideologies or our religious ideologies or any ideologies, it's so easy to close our hearts and protect ourselves. And my hope is that we'll really open ourselves up. This is a daily practice for me. I'm the youngest of 7 children. My family calls me the family Demorat. And I left my conservative religion about 12 years ago. And I just came out just a little over 2 years ago. So that was just a whole unfolding process for me. I'm so grateful for my psychedelic experience because it helped me figure out my life. And I've become so happy and joyful and lucky. And even though I'm pretty old to figure it out, I'm really grateful that I figured it out. And my family doesn't know quite what to do with me. And my partner, sweetheart, proposed to me at Pride in front of, like 1,000 people. And then it was shared all over Instagram and Facebook. And so all of my siblings who weren't quite sure of my story were certainly sure of it once I was engaged. And it was really interesting because in my last ayahuasca journey, I felt such a peace with my dad. And I thought, you know what? My Trump loving dad is just going to pass away and he'll never know that I'm gay. It won't even be a problem. It'll all be. And I felt this peace. And then Troy said to me one day, Mindy, you've got to give your dad a chance to love all of you. But honestly, they're very, very, him and the rest of my siblings are very, very, uh, very conservative, very outspoken about politics. Um, to the point where I've had to mute my family group chat just to feel kind of safe. But what I have to remember is I have to go back that my dad's my dad. And I know that he loves me ultimately. And these things that are causing a lot of division in our hearts and in our family are really we have no effect on the national scope of politics, but it's certainly affecting our health, my sanity, my relationships with my dad especially. This is a picture of my who was then 88-year-old dad. This was at the Allies Gala, and I produced the Allies Gala, and I felt really proud of it. And I said, Dad, you guys have to come to the Allies Gala, and I can't wait for you to be there. But I need you to just relax because there's going to be a lot of, men in dresses, and there's going to be um, guys with makeup and wigs. And he said, in other words, keep my damn mouth shut. And I said, right. And what was so darling is that he came and he and his darling little wife sat and ate dinner. And then I took them up to their seats. And it was the year we had Billy Porter. And Billy Porter came out in his dress and his heels, and he sang his guts out, and he took us to church and really shared his soul with us. And I was thinking, I wonder what my dad is thinking about all of this. And in fact, that was the year Urquhart walked out in his high heels as well. Um, and after the show, I went and got my dad and I said, what did you think? And he said, that's about the most talented man I've ever seen in my life. And we hugged and he told me good job, and my son drove him home. And I thought how brave that was of my 88-year-old dad to show up at the gay soiree and be willing to be in that space, be willing to sit there, to be willing to listen to a 2-hour program about the gay agenda. But he was. I mean, this is a guy who loves Trump so much, he has a picture of Trump and Jesus walking on the beach together. So that was a huge stretch for him. And I think, am I willing to stretch for someone I love? Am I willing to show up in places that might be uncomfortable for me and to let my ego and my correctness and rightness down to show up because I love them? And um, I love this. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. And at family gatherings, I really have to really do all the meditative things I can do to relax my shoulders and listen and interesting. And one thing that Irshad would coach us on, she would say, the best response when someone's really going at it to you and you really disagree is to say, tell me more. And once they say, tell me more, once they've talked all the way through, there's usually a point where they've relaxed in as well and they feel heard and they might be willing to hear you. But until someone feels heard, they're not going to listen. Um, oh, the other, I'm going to go forward here. Um, has anyone here seen this kind of thing happen on social media? Of course you have. I was up all night last night stressing out because of how many friends were losing their minds about the fear of losing marriage equality. And and to see the vitriol and the hurt and the hate and the it was scaring me because these are loving people who are scared about losing their right to marriage. But it was almost like they weren't themselves behind that platform. And and so my hope and suggestion here is that we will get together in groups like this where we're real, where we're talking to each other live, or that we'll get together like you do at the Dell or at a park with your friends, but actually get face to face, eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart, and have real in life connections because I think our souls are hungry for it. And there's awesome organizations. This is a bunch of my friends from the Utah Pride Center. And I just wanted to share this. Like they do these sit and stitch and different activities to just hang out. Ro and I showed up and wrapped Christmas gifts. They just had a Christmas gift wrapping party because they had bought a bunch of Christmas gifts for LGBT seniors. And it was such a beautiful event. We didn't know hardly anyone who had showed up that night. And it was such an awesome way to be together and to be in community. Um, and this, an old Stephen Covey quote again, it's not logical, it's psychological. Um, I'm sure that many of us here have heard the parable of the five blind men touching the elephant, and each one of them touching a different part of the elephant and experiencing something absolutely different. No, this is a tree. But the one touching the ear, it's nothing like a tree. It's a fan. And the one touching the snake, it's nothing like a fan. It's a snake. And how, like that quote said, it's different perspectives, and it's not logical. It's psychological. It's the lenses that we're looking through these eyeballs of our own experience, and and to have compassion and understanding that people can see and will see things differently than we do. Um, and Monica Guzman in the book, I never thought of it that way. We have to be asking a lot more questions. Tell me more. The other thing in my coaching with Ershad, we were prepping, Equality Utah was prepping to go to the Republican convention. And this was an extremely scary year to go to the Republican convention for an LGBT organization. It was the trans sports year. And it was really scary. We were kind of fearful about going. So we did some training with Irshad before, and she said, Mindy, you're being so nice and you're acting like you're listening, but you're not listening. You're waiting to teach me. And that was such an intense lesson for me. And it felt really painful for her to see me and hit it that spot on, because I was listening to teach her something and listening to be right. And I think when we talk to people that we absolutely disagree with, if we can listen to learn and really try to have an open heart and to stay as present as we can while we're listening, we can see some really good results and some actual deep connection. This is a picture of that Republican convention. And I wanted to just share a quick story about um, what happened. Uh, we got coolers full of Diet Coke and we brought them up. And what was interesting actually is this year, folks didn't want our booth anywhere near anyone else's booth. Thankfully, John Curtis was willing to let us sit up next to him and ranked choice voting. They were willing to host next to us. But we brought in coolers full of Diet Coke and we were very friendly and we're very cheerful. And we just tried to have connected conversation with every person that was at that convention. And it was really exciting. We had some exciting conversations, but one in particular, this little guy, he was probably about 5'3". He came marching up to me and he got really close to my face and he had his Make America Great Again hat and he said, being gay is an abomination, but there's a lot of gays, but being trans is ridiculous. It's not even real. And he was just yelling and raging. And I said, whoa, 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 tell me why you think that. And I shocked him by saying that to him. And he started talking and talking and talking. And he was almost like frantically talking. And I said, really? I've never heard that. I have never heard that. Interesting. And he would give me a clue. And I'm from Santa Quin and I'm a police officer. And I say, my mom's from Santa Quin. Did you grow up there? And I would try to get in with him personally and try and guide him away. And he would just keep talking. And I stayed with him and literally for about 30 minutes. And finally, he had said to me what he was needing to say. And I said, hey, have you ever met a transgender person before? And he goes, no, no. But and I said, hey, let me introduce you to my friend Olivia, who is probably the most incredible person you've ever met. And I brought her over, and Olivia walked over with her Air Force shirt, and she said, hey, how you doing? She spoke to him and said, and he found out he was also a veteran. She was 20 years in the Air Force. They talked for another 20 minutes. And by the time, and I kind of scooted away, by the time he left, he came up to me and he looked at me and he said, I have been educated. And he said it twice with a little tear in his eye. And I said, do you think we should hug each other? And we hugged and we kind of laughed. And he went away from the booth. But the rest of that day, he came by 3 times going, and he would give me a thumbs up and he would give Olivia a thumbs up. And it was like we had made this connection with this dude. And it just taught me such a lesson in listening, and that this work is a long game, that learning to connect takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of in-person conversation, and it takes a lot of listening and a lot of really huge effort to stay present, because it's really hard not to get hurt or defensive or mad. And I want to live a life with an open heart. And I feel like staying present is the way that I can do that. Um, and I hope that this was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas and um, that made you think about maybe some people that you want to have greater communication with and greater connection with that are in your lives. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Mindy. That was awesome. I see one question. I'm going to go to it. Yeah, I'd love to see any other questions. Um, Somebody asks, doing this work, having the conversations can be draining. How do you not burn out?
Oh, are are you still seeing my PowerPoint or just me? Just
Nope,
me.
nope. Just you.
Um, I Burnout is real. And I'm really emotional today because I've been really affected by my social media. I Because I couldn't sleep last night, it was on it all night, and it really made me emotional all day today. And so the burnout is real. Um, a few things. I have a really beautiful partner that I say a lot of, I swear and pound around and stomp, and I say things to her I would never say to anything else. I have friends like Sarah and other folks that I will say what I really think. Um, but I keep that group small um, because I don't want to hurt other people and have them feel like I'm feeling. Um, I also think I read a really beautiful book. I really highly recommend it, called Awakening Joy. And it's a kind of a dorky looking cover. It's got a flower on it, but man, that I have it in print and I have the audio book because it's almost meditative. But in it, he had us do a meditation of um, someone we loved, and we thought about them, and then we experienced them as a young child. And it was such a joyful meditation. And he's like, think about someone you know that you don't know well, maybe you'd like to know better, but you're acquaintances. Imagine them as a child and that you love them, and imagine them playing. And then think about someone that you hate. And I was like, I don't hate. And I'm like, ooh, you know who I'm giving a lot of my attention to? The president of the United States. And I'm literally making myself sick, physically ill, stressing out about things that I have no control over. And I did this meditation of Donald Trump as a little child, playing a 3-year-old child. And not that anything grand changed, but maybe something in my heart changed a little to imagine that we're all connected, that we were all little wounded children, and that um, to just something just shifted in my heart enough to not let it make me sick anymore or make me feel so angry that I couldn't handle it.
Wow, Mindy, that's a great story too. Great example. Because, yeah, I feel like I get caught up in that. And I'm even dealing with something right now where I'm ruminating on this very long friendship I've had with somebody. And it just feels like she and I cannot connect. Where she's seeing the world a certain way, I'm seeing it a completely different way. And, the same events, and we don't have the same memory of those events. And I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I have to walk away from this. And it's heartbreaking. So I guess that's my question is, when do you walk away versus when do you sit and listen? And do we ever walk away? Is that ever the healthy thing to do?
Um, I have walked away many times in my family where I'll say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm feeling super emotional and like I want to hate your guts right now. So I'm gonna work and I'll make it a little joke of it. But when it's like, okay, now you're bullying me. And
Yeah.
now it's too far. And they'll joke back, and then it'll take me a few days to recover. Like I'm not hanging out with them the next day. But I think we can protect our boundaries and speak it. I think if we gulp it down and swallow it and close our chakra and we get all hurt, that's not going to make anybody healthy either. But when we can say, whoa, in a way that can still be kind and set a boundary, I think it can be powerful. We had a guy at the Republican convention yell at us across the room when we were carrying the coolers out. And he came yelling at us, and I said, whoa, whoa, what's wrong? And I shocked him because I came toward him yelling at us and asked him what was wrong. And he said, aren't you the ones who want to castrate transgender kids and make them? And I was like, what? And I said, oh, I think you have us. I think we're not who you think we are. And then he's like, yeah, I heard on the news that you were, and this was like a really classy guy from Park City, but he was just out of his mind, ready to scream at us. And Troy came up and he said, listen, all of this stuff we hear on the news, we really got to have conversations about. This is very nuanced medical stuff. We've got to have conversations about it. And he said, I'm really embarrassed I yelled at you like that. And I think because we were willing to come at him with compassion when he hadn't earned it, or he wasn't coming at us with compassion. But I handed him my card and I said, "Give me a call. I really would like to hear what you have to say and see if we can offer any understanding from our perspective." And he never called. But just that he apologized in that moment for yelling
Yeah.
at us and for not being human was powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, yeah, any other questions? I can keep asking them, but is there anything else people would want to hear about or think about? Um,
I'm
can you see Steve's question? Any specific thoughts on effective communication regarding psychedelic worship?
Oh, you know what? I have when I first started doing psychedelics about 7 years ago, it was so life changing and impactful that I couldn't shut up about it. I was telling everybody whether they asked or wanted to know it all. And I really realized um I was I that those sacred things that had happened to me, even though they were so impactful, that I needed to lay the groundwork before I overshared like that.
Yeah.
And so I learned a few hard lessons because I think I scared people away um, unnecessarily because of my excitement and hope. Um, I I will often say, well, I'm part of this mushroom church, and people will be like, "What?" And they'll be like, seriously, that's a thing. And then I'll crack a joke. Well, I am part of a mushroom church. And in that joke, it will open up for conversation. And they're like, really? And then I explain the RIFRA Law Act, and I'll just say, yeah, it's a really exciting opportunity. It's a really amazing group. I really love the people who organized this, and that will often lead me into conversation.
Oh, I love that.
And then
Rob,
I can say how much they've changed my life.
right? Baby steps, right?
Right,
And we learned
right.
that in Mormonism, the pearls before swine. If they're not ready for it, if they're not, they might
Yeah.
trample it. They might not appreciate it at all, right? It's
Well,
meaningless to them
and
unless they're
and
ready.
I think when, my life changed so dramatically that I scare people already because they see me as this, and now I'm out and I'm gay and I have all these kids, and
Yeah.
it's and I'm doing psychedelics, and it's very scary, and they're not sure how to box me. And yet they like me and they're my friend, but it's
Right.
like doing a number on their head. So the more I can show up, um wanting to communicate, wanting to know about them, wanting to have an open heart, the more I have found that people are ready to listen and to have a conversation.
I love that. I'm going to read this message from Rob in the chat. He says, thank you so much, Mindy. One of my values after leaving religion was to never build or sustain a relationship based on information, which is exactly what religion and politics are, just information in our heads activated in our emotions. Nobody
Mm.
understands this in my world, and your message today was so recentering for me.
Oh,
So,
that makes me
really, really good. Thank you. I am not seeing any other questions. So I think maybe we'll end a little early today, but Mindy, this was exactly what I wanted. Thank you. I just know the way you live. You live so authentically. I know I've seen you in some of these hard conversations when I couldn't do it, when I had to walk away, and I've witnessed you, and I'm just so grateful to have you in my life and that you were willing to come here and share your energy and your heart with other people that I love, who are also in this meeting. So thank you so much. And everybody will hang out here for a few minutes. If you have any other questions or anything that not related to what Mindy has to say, throw them in the chat and I'll stick around and try to answer anything. But these are, as usual, these are so much fun, and it's fun to connect with everybody and to have you here. And thank you for sharing your evening with us. All
Such
right.
a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye, Mindy.
Bye bye.